All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Dave and Nick here. We know our 2022 preview and prediction for the Missouri Tigers. Looking at this coaching staff, Eli Drinkwitz is the lead man, 11-12 through 2 seasons. Curtis Looper, he's back for his third year. He also coaches the backs. And Blake Barker, this is his first year as defensive coordinator. Spent last season at LSU, and then 2 years at Miami before that. So a good depth of experience there for Barker. Look at this offense. Nick, Connor Blazic transfers out, and I wasn't really a big fan of him transferring out because I thought he was pretty solid in his first 2 years, but Brady Cook looked so good in the bowl game, and I said to myself, I wouldn't be shocked if he transfers in a few days. And what do you know? He ends up doing that. He's now at Indiana. Cook, though, in the bowl game against Army, he looked phenomenal. He seemed quite poised, made some good plays, really kept them in that game. Tyler Brady, of course, did not play in that game, so it was kind of up to him to lead the offense. Jake Abraham, he's now at his third different school. The USM transfer, he went to Mississippi State, didn't work out there. He's now here to potentially battle for this lead job. How do you feel about this quarterback room here at Missouri?
I like Brady Cook. I think he should be the starting quarterback day one for this Missouri Tigers team. Had a decent bowl game, solid player across the board. I think he's a good quarterback. Nothing crazy. He's not going to lay up the stat sheet for you, but I think he's a really talented quarterback who has some serious potential. I like the game logs from him. That, like we speak about that bowl game, had a really strong showing there against Army. Looked good in there. I think he was a solid quarterback. I think he has a decent potential. Not the greatest in the world, but he's a steady guy. 27 of 34. For 79.4 completion percentage, 238 yards, and a touchdown in a losing effort against Army in the bowl game. Solid quarterback. I think that it's a decent guy to start with, considering the talent he has at wide receiver to throw to.
Cook, like you said, was great in that bowl game. Small sample size, but it was positive. I'm optimistic for him, so we'll see what happens. I'm worried about this backfield, though, because Tyler Beatty departs. 1,900 yards of production has to be replaced. That's no gimme in the SEC. That's very tough to do. Very phenomenal season from Beatty. Nathaniel Pete, though, he comes over from Stanford. Speedy back, 5'10", 195 pounds. Handful of long touchdown runs in his career. Excited to see what he can do. Cody Schrader, he comes from Truman State. I don't believe he's on scholarship yet, but I think he should be soon, if not already. He led the team in rushing in the spring game. 2,100 yards, 25 touchdowns. I think that's a D2 school, Truman State. That's insane production, of course. That's going to come down tremendously. It just shows you his potential, though, and I think that's why they went out and got him. Solid little duo here. Elijah Young as well. He's the number 2 back last year. Only got a few touches, 226 total yards. I think they're pretty happy with what they have in the backfield. Of course, losing 1,900 yards, that's tough to overcome.
Right, replacing 1,900 yards is very difficult for a D1 program to do. Schrader had a good run at Truman State, an in-state program, Missouri Division II program, absolutely lit up the scoring board there. Obviously, you'd expect a natural drop in production going from a Division II to SEC ball, but I think Elijah Young's a solid back as well. Limited attempts, but 4.4 yards per carry, plus a touchdown for him. I like bringing in Pete, solid guy out of the transfer portal. I think he has some serious potential. But it's tough to replace that numbers. Beatty was just ridiculous last year. 14 touchdowns, 6 yards per carry on the ground, 1,600 yards on the ground, in addition to 300 yards receiving. Super talented back they have to replace, and I just don't know if the production's going to be there.
Very optimistic for this running game, though, mainly because 4 starters are back on the offensive line. Left tackle Javon Foster, he's great in pass protection, 6'5", 320. We'll see if he can develop as more of a brick in the running game as well. Benise Polgar, he should slot in at center. He's the Buffalo transfer. Good size of guard. Xavier Delgado, Connor Wood, they're both 325-plus pounds. So they get a guy from Buffalo who's got plenty of experience, so they really don't replace much on this offensive front. What are your expectations for them this fall?
A lot of great experience on this offensive line. I love the talent they have. I think they brought in a good guy like Polgar from Buffalo. I think it's a solid pickup. I think Foster's solid left tackle. Love his pass protection. Needs to work on polishing his run blocking a little bit. I think he can do that this offseason. Connor Wood as well, graduate transfer at right guard. Zeke Powell, also graduate transfer at right tackle. I love the experience on that right side. A lot of experience there. This is a very strong offensive line.
Very young passing game, though. We just talked about Brady Cook. Now we talk about his receivers. Tusky Dove, he had 38 grabs for 576 yards, rather. No scores last year. Barrett Bannister, he had 32 receptions, only 226 yards. Some experience there for the most part. Not a lot of returning production. Mookie Cooper didn't really break out like I thought last year, but he's still young, so there's still a chance for him. Chance Looper, coach's son, he's a rising sophomore. Both of them are, so I expect those 2 guys to get involved this year. And then Luther Burden, number 3 ranked recruit. They keep him at home. They beat out guys like Georgia and Bama that were gunning hard for him. He stays in state, tracks the ball well. He's strong, he's elusive. Quite the pass catcher on the outside for being 6 foot, 200. Should be able to play in the slot as well. He's going to get on the field immediately, and I think they're going to feed him a lot because you kind of have to when you're a school like Missouri that lands with a top 5 recruit like this.
Right, I think Dove's a solid wide receiver, 576 yards last year, 15.2 yards per catch. But of course, this is all about Luther Burden this year. incredible grab from Missouri, one of the highest ranked recruits to ever come to the Tigers program. It's very clear that, Eli Drinkwitz is the right hire. He's kind of been really strong with recruiting. I like what he's done there. And they keep Burton in state. That's a very huge grab in an era of NIL and transfer and things like that. If Burton's not getting targets early on, he's definitely going to throw a fit potentially and leave. Players can leave schools very quickly if they don't get the playing time they think they deserve. I think Burton's an incredible talent. I love the way he tracks the ball. I love his size, love his speed. So I'd expect them to target him a lot quickly, get him the ball very early on, get him involved in the offense, and he could be a star for this program for the next 3 years to come.
I expect the Missouri offense to regress significantly this fall, but I do think for 2023 they're set up pretty well. 29 points per game last year. I think you'll see them around that 23, 24 point per game mark this fall. Looking at the defense, 7 starters are back, and what was a horrendous run defense, Nick, 124th against the run in college football. They did hold South Carolina and Florida to under 100 yards each late in the year, so they obviously made some nice strides as the year went on, but overall was not great. 5.3 yards per carry allowed, 32 touchdowns. They need to be better flat out. They should have been, considering how productive their defensive ends were. Isaiah McGuire, 14 tackles for loss. He had 6 sacks as well. Trajan Jeffcoat had 10 tackles for loss. Nice starting point here, but the interior D-line was a big struggle, and that's evident by the 4 transfers they had. The best one they had last year was Mekhi Wingo when he left for LSU, so they pick up guys like Josh Landry and Jay Jenigan. What are your expectations for this D-line that has to be better?
Yeah, not a great front 7. Definitely lacking at times. I like McGuire a lot. 14 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 55 total tackles for him. I think he's a good starting point. Jeffcoat too, also solid player. 34 total tackles, 10 for loss, 3.5 sacks, plus a fumble recovery and a forced fumble. He actually scored a touchdown as well too. So I do like what they have on the edge, but I think the interior is the problem. They did try to address this in the transfer portal. They got some guys in here, some guys with some serious experience, but I just don't know if these guys are really going to be ready to get into the trenches early on and dominate like they need to. This defensive line was poor last year, and teams just ran all over them.
I do think the middle of their defense is pretty solid. They lose Blaze Aldridge at linebacker. They do return Devin Nicholson with 49 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss. I think it'll be a breakout year for him. Chad Bailey, he's a rising senior, hit 55 stops last year. And Tyrone Hopper from UF, he comes over. Some much-needed experience here at linebacker. How do you feel overall about this front 7? I know you just said it was poor, but does this linebacking core give you any optimism?
It is a poor front 7, but I do like some of the linebacking core options. I think Nicholson's a solid guy, 48 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks as well. Bailey also not terrible, 5.5 tackles for loss plus a sack. I just think I need to see more production out of Bailey and Nicholson across the board. I just don't think that the linebackers really lived up to the potential that these 2 guys have. They have a lot of experience and they can take a step forward potentially, but this is a poor front 7 across the board for me.
Now, the secondary is a quite solid group last year. Of course, it was so easy to move on the ground. And they did allow 25 touchdowns. 8.2 yards per attempt was also 108th in college football. They had some strong individual play, though, that is definitely encouraging. Martez Manuel at corner. He's back after, racking it up on the stat sheet. 77 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, which was second on the team, which is, that's not exactly great when one of your best pass rushers is a corner. Chris Abrams-Drenny, 3 picks, 7 pass breakups, even had a kick return touchdown. So those 2 guys, they're going to push for all conference this fall. Jalen Carlisle, he had 4 interceptions, 68 tackles. And then Clemson transfer Joseph Charleston should slot into the lineup. Pretty sound secondary, in my opinion. I think this is definitely going to be the catalyst of this defense.
I like Carlisle's a lot. The 4 interceptions, solid numbers from him. Picked up some good yards on the ground during the returns as well. 12.8 yards per return on the interceptions. 67 total tackles for Carlisle's. I like him a lot. The secondary is strong. They had good times last year, but when you get run over like they did in the poor run defense, teams are going to avoid throwing here. But I think Manuel's solid. I think Abrams-Drenny is also very solid as well. I really like this secondary. I think it's a very strong secondary. I think it has some serious potential.
Especially if the pass rush can start to develop a little bit more, get some more pressure. I think these guys will have a field day. I'm going to schedule a preview and prediction. Despite having a good O-line, the offense, I think they're going to be quite flat this year. I think, again, 2023 is where they'll start to make some strides. To lose that 1,900 yards of production in the backfield, though, it's really tough to overcome. I believe the defense takes some big strides, but this division is much more talented than them at this moment in time, much more advanced. This passing attack on offense doesn't have many advantages in conference play, it seems. I just don't expect this young group of receivers with Brady Cook at the helm to do a whole lot. Offense regresses while the defense progresses, but again, another build year for Missouri. 4-8 for me, with 1 win in the conference coming against Vanderbilt, a free one at home. Very tough schedule, and just again, in the division, these teams are much more advanced than they are at this moment in time. It's going to be tough to compete.
Yeah, tough draw getting Auburn out of the division play in the West Division, and having to play Arkansas as well, rivalry game towards the end of the season. I do like what Eli Drinkwitz is building in Columbia. I think he's the right coach. I think he has sort of the building blocks. The recruiting has been well. I just think right now is not the time for this Missouri team. I do like the progress they made. Certainly a step back considering they'll miss a bowl game this year based off our record prediction, but the schedule's not doing them any favors. A lot of teams in the East got significantly better. They've developed leaps and bounds. I'm looking at South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky. These are all tough opponents in the division that have gotten a lot better. I think Missouri's on the right track. I just think right now 4-8 is appropriate for this team.
Even September 10th on the road at Kansas State's a tough draw as well. So no real favors out of conference. LA Tech, they've shown to be tough over the last couple of years too. And then a couple freebies at Abilene Christian and Mexico State. But yeah, 4-8 for me. Gonna be a tough year for Missouri. Very interested in the future though from Drinkwitz and the staff. As always, Nick, I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.